there's an FDA advisory panel that is meeting at this moment to consider Johnson & Johnson booster shots. Now, that same panel voted unanimously yesterday to endorse Moderna's third dose for some Americans. Meanwhile, the president is ramping up his push to get shots in all American arms. Weijia Jiang has the details.
We're headed in the right direction.
President Biden said his plan to get out of the pandemic is working. But he called out the unvaccinated for preventing more progress.
We're down to 66 million, still unacceptably high number of unvaccinated people from almost 100 million in July.
Many who got a Moderna vaccine could soon have access to a booster.
So we do have a unanimous 19 out of 19 yes votes.
An FDA advisory panel recommended a third shot for seniors, younger adults with health problems, and for anyone who works or lives in a place that puts them at a higher risk for contracting the virus. The dose will be half as much as the first two shots.
The immune response to the Moderna vaccine seems a little more robust and durable than the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine.
An authorization from the FDA could come in days. Then the CDC would meet next week, which would mean the earliest that Americans would be able to get the Moderna booster would likely be next Friday.
And we're just joining us from the White House now to discuss. So, Weijia, this FDA panel is quite busy this month. What other new vaccine recommendations are being considered?
So today, we expect that they will vote on whether or not to recommend the Johnson & Johnson vaccine as a booster. But to be clear, this is an outside panel of advisors to the FDA. And then later, the FDA will have to decide whether to authorize any of these different vaccines. After that, the CDC will have to determine how to adopt those recommendations before sending them out to the public. So in addition to Johnson & Johnson, later this month, they will also talk about whether to authorize the Pfizer vaccine for children between the ages of 5 and 11. They're also looking at a study from the National Institutes of Health that has not yet been peer-reviewed, but finds that mixing and matching vaccines is actually safe and effective. And so they do have a lot to unpack. It will move down the chain, and then ultimately the CDC will decide how to develop guidelines for everyday Americans.
Weijia, President Biden is eyeing former FDA Commissioner Dr. Robert Califf, I hope I said his name right, to head the agency again. What do we know about him?
So he actually served under former President Obama for just under a year. He came on at the beginning of 2016, and now he is a professor at Duke University. So he has experience in this role before, and even though CBS News and our White House unit has confirmed that he's the top contender, we want to make clear that the White House has said that no decisions have been made yet. And so, we know how this works. A lot of names get leaked, and he is certainly one of them. But until the president announces his nomination, we are not confirming for sure that this is going to be his pick. But it is notable that we have not had a permanent director of the FDA in the middle of a pandemic since President Biden came to office. And we've been pressing the White House so much, guys, that it's almost become a running joke that's not funny in the press briefing. Almost every Friday, someone will throw out to Jen Psaki, hey, who is the president going to nominate for FDA? And so far have not gotten a firm answer.
Well, I know you and the rest of the press corps will stay on that, Weijia, until we get an answer. So why wasn't the acting commissioner, I guess, asked to stay on permanently? Is the president unhappy with the way the FDA is currently being run?
I don't think that's it at all. I mean, she was brought in as an acting commissioner, so she could have from the very beginning been his nominee. But remember, this is a Senate-confirmed nominee, and so whoever he chooses has to undergo hearings and has to be confirmed by the Senate. And with regard to Woodcock, Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia has very publicly criticized her before for her handling of the opioid crisis, in addition to some other regulations. And so if not a single Republican were to vote for her, she couldn't be passed. And I think that's exactly why it has taken so long. They want to make sure they have somebody that they can present to the president who he approves of, who he nominates, but then can also be confirmed by the Senate. So I think that's exactly what's going on right now before they, officially pull the trigger.
The White House released its financial climate report today. What can you tell us about that?
So this is a follow-up to the president's executive order back in May. He basically asked the government to take a look at how various climate crises could impact the U.S. economy. And this 40-page report shows not only that it certainly does, but also lists a few different steps that the government can take. You're seeing here, for example, promoting the resilience of the U.S. financial system to protect life savings and pensions from climate-related financial risks, because we've seen time and time again when people undergo these disasters, they have to invest a lot of their own money and lose a lot of money because of all the damage. And then using federal procurement to address climate-related issues, incorporating climate-related financial risks into federal financial management, budgeting, lending, and underwriting, which is really interesting because in some of these areas that are not exactly flood zones, someone might be hit by a 100-year flood, and then they cannot file an insurance claim using flood coverage, so it gets really messy. And then building resilient infrastructure and communities. Of course, many of the president's infrastructure plans with regard to climate change are baked into the Build Back Better plan, which is stuck on Capitol Hill and, has not been able to pass. And so this report comes ahead of the president's visit to COP26 in November with world leaders. It's a huge climate summit, and this is meant to be an example to show that the U.S. is taking extreme measures, is really assessing how climate change will impact not only the U.S., but the world economies. But guys, this is going to be really tricky for him as well, because as we mentioned, the Build Back Better plan, if it's not passed by then, it gives world leaders a lot of room to ask questions about why, he might be pressuring other countries to do more with climate change when the U.S. can't even agree on how to move forward.
All right, Weijia, thank you so much.
Sure.